KMSU.
Yes, is this Dustin?
This is Dustin.
Hi, Dustin. It's Renae Jacobs. How are you doing?
I'm excellent. How are you today?
I'm fine. I'm sorry to call a little late. I had a last-minute session and just finished.
Yeah, no problem. It's great to have you on today.
Thank you. It's nice to be on.
I'll introduce you to my co-host, Ton.
Hey, Renee, how you doing?
Hi, how are you?
I am great. Glad to have you on the line. If you're ready to go, we'll get started.
I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Well, I guess talk to us. You are a big-time voice actor. You have been. Talk to us about how you got involved in the voice acting business.
Well, I started when I was a little kid. My father won a bowling tournament. Funny way to start the story. But the prize was the full collection of Disney vinyl records. And these records were not just records, but they were books. You opened up the album, and all of the script was in there, and it was animated. And so we had a basement in Michigan because, you have tornadoes. So my father and mother created this, playroom for me, and in there they put a phonograph with stereo, and I would play the records. I would line all my stuffed animals up on the couch. They were my audience. And I would mimic the voices and memorize the lines. It also had a full complement of Broadway shows as well. So I would just spend hours down there doing voices. And one day my mom came down in the basement to find out who was down there because she couldn't understand where all these different voices were coming from, and realized I had something. So MSU, Michigan State University, had programs for children, classes, and I was 6 or 7 years old, and she took me to one of the classes where there was a woman who was kind of like the precursor to Romper Room, and she was like a little Peter Pan type of a character on MSU television. And she gave classes in puppetry for children. And so I took her classes, and she showed us how to take stuffed animals and take all the stuffing out and make puppets out of them. And she thought I was talented and actually put me on her show. So I started doing voices. I was probably about 6, 7 years old, and on television. So that was how I started.
Yeah, definitely an interesting way to get into things, and kind of an interesting prize for a bowling tournament, I would say.
Well, those were back in the innocent days. Who knows what it'd be? Call of Duty. I'd be in the military now.
So at that point, you're 6 years old working on a television show with a puppet. Is that really the start of the career? You just were busy at it ever since then, or
yes.
How did that progress?
Yes, it really did. From I did that for a while, and took classes and voice lessons. And when I was 10 years old, my parents decided to move to California. And it was the best thing that ever happened. So we moved to California, and I started getting involved in children's theater and performing. There was a theater company. You had to be 18 years or younger to be in the company, and so I started working on stage, backstage, on stage, and then in high school I started doing voiceovers for Knott's Berry Farm. It's a theme park out here, and they had this gypsy camp, and they had puppet shows again that were kind of like the Muppets. In fact, one of the teachers in my high school was an artist, and he created these puppets, and they asked him to create a show, and I was very active in the theater there, and so he asked me to do the voices. So I did all the voices for all the different characters in these puppet shows. They were recorded, and then people manipulated the the puppets in the park, but it was those were my voices. So I just continued to do that, and then once I graduated college, it just kind of snowballed from there. I did a lot of theater, traveled around the world. I have a degree in music performance from USC, and in opera and musical theater, and having a wide vocal range enabled me to do voices from the high to the low and the middle. And being 4'10", I wasn't always going to be the lead on stage. So I was able to create these voices, and didn't matter how tall I was or what you looked like. You could be anything you wanted to be, which is pretty rare on stage or on film or television. So that's kind of how I got into it.
And of course, a lot of people know you from your work on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and we've talked to a few other people who have been on the show, and it all kind of seems like they just assumed it was another job, cartoon with a weird name, but eventually took over the world. Could you sense that was the case when you first started out?
Oh, no, absolutely not. Any time you told someone what you were working on, they all went, "What?" It was a total surprise. I think it was a total surprise to everyone involved, from the toys to the, it was just the first 5-part series only started as a way to advertise the toys for Christmas. And there was such a huge response. I think it caught everybody off guard. I don't know, maybe not, but it sure caught us off guard. We did the first 5-part series, and we thought it was fun, and then we didn't hear that we went to series until April the next year. And we were all thrilled, of course, but nobody guessed in a million years that it would continue for 9 years.
Sure.
And continues to today.
Yeah.
One of the most thrilling things doing Comic-Cons is you meet those people who were children when it was first popular, and now they're bringing their children, and they're sharing not only the new series, but they're sharing the old series, my series, with them, and it's such a wonderful connection, mother and father to children, and it's not just guys, women too.
Right.
And it is just heartwarming. It's hard these days to connect with your kids and to see them share the same passion for something that you grew up with and loved. It's just special.
Well, and as April O'Neil on the show, one of the few women in the cast, I guess, what was that kind of atmosphere like behind the scenes? Was it sort of like you and a bunch of big brothers, or that sort of sense?
Absolutely. We all did our little bit of flirting, but we were all just very dear friends and still are. It was a lot of fun. The guys are so funny. I wish we had some outtake reels from our sessions, because what was going on was, I would leave with my face hurting every time. The director, Sue Blue, would have to pull us back from the amazing creative things that were going on, because it wasn't, exactly where they wanted to take the turtles, which was always more serious than we ever let them do. Every season she would say, "Okay, guys, they want to take it darker." And the first couple of episodes, I don't know if for those big fans, you might see every season, the first few episodes, it's darker. And then it gets sillier and sillier and sillier, because these guys really took it in my opinion, the right direction. These were the Marx Brothers. These were people who wanted to impart honor and friendship and loyalty, and to do the right thing. And getting dark for darkness' sake I don't think anybody felt that was the right direction for our show. At least in the cast. They certainly didn't let it go that, Pat Fraley taking Krang over the top. He was the evil guy, but if you really, really pay attention, he is hysterical. Even James Avery with Shredder. The relationships between the actors in the recording session it was just magic.
So do you feel like, in that sense, because everybody kind of recorded at the same time in the same room, if they had maybe broken it up and did it one at a time, the show might have been drastically different then.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We built those characters with our relationships in the studio and the fun stuff that was going on behind the scenes. And getting to know each other personally and going through life experiences, children and crises and celebrations, and that's what built the relationship between all of us, and I think that's what created that really tight family, that caring. I don't know if that's what people are feeling with the new series or anything else that came after us, but I think that you really feel that love for each other as brothers and for me as a sister in terms of April. I can't. How do you go into a studio with a microphone and a stand and a director and create a loving relationship with another character who's not even in the room? A lot of the lines weren't in the script. A lot of those things were ad-libbed, and those were all played, each other played off each other. So again, the evolution of those characters was created by that bond in the recording studio.
So do you ever go back and watch any of these old shows, or do you have, favorite episodes, or is it just kind of something you did and it kind of stays in the past?
I've watched it. I've had professional reason to watch it. There've been some jobs that I've had. They wanted me to reenact April, give them that essence of the April voice for different projects. So I've gone back for professional reasons. I've gone back for entertainment reasons. There are fans who will, email me through Facebook an episode and want me to watch it. And and I love it. I go back and you get more and more out of it each time. It's fun. It's really fun. So I enjoy it for what it is, not just to listen to what I did. It's really entertaining.
Well, you mentioned doing a lot of work on stage, and obviously you did some other stuff outside of the Turtles. Do you prefer one or the other, or is it kind of morphed more towards voiceover stuff now? Or?
Well, being on stage is an amazing experience. I actually was I sing, and I received an honor in Israel, in Jerusalem, and I was asked to sing the Israeli national anthem at the event. And it turned out that Barbra Streisand was also getting an honorary doctorate at the same event for the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Of course, she's my hero and my idol, and I just, I was like, I don't think I'm singing.
Yeah.
So I said, I'll tell you what, you ask her if she'll sing. If she'll sing, I'm certainly not going to sing. So they asked her. She said no. I said, you have to ask her 2 more times. And tell her that you have someone who's going to sing the national anthem, and, is that okay? So they went back to her 2 more times, and she said no, and yes, it's okay. So I had the opportunity of singing in front of 1,000 people, and Barbra Streisand, 5 feet away from me, the Israeli national anthem. It was one of the biggest thrills of my life to be able to keep it together, first of all. I mean, can you imagine standing next to whoever your favorite person in the world would be? I mean, yeah. I thought I didn't know I was going to be able to do it. But I thought, if you blow this, it's going to be the worst thing in your life. So I got up and sang, and being on stage with a live audience, there's nothing like it. You can't compare it to voiceover. Voiceover is also a thrill. It's wonderful to be in that booth and record. It's wonderful to be with people in that booth and share that experience. They're completely different. I think that if I had to make a choice, I might choose live theater. I mean, that is such a rush every night to get on stage and be in front of an audience and deal with things that happen on stage, and at the end, to hopefully get those the audience with you. I think that's always going to be my first love. But, I always say Broadway is where you're happy, and I'm happy doing anything that is creative.
Sure.
So put me in front of a microphone, I'll be there all day. I'm more than happy and thrilled to do that. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, for sure. I have a very unrelated question, and I didn't realize that this was the same person until we were doing some research for this interview, but I remember watching the TV show Masters of the Maze and had no clue that you were, the lady of the maze on that show.
Yes, I was. Yes, I was.
That's the power of Google, I guess.
Yeah.
The lady of the maze. I like how he puts that, too.
I was the mistress of the maze, to be correct.
Sure.
Mistress of the maze.
That was an interesting show. That was the precursor to all of these video games, and it was really, for its time, it was really forward thinking. It's really hokey when you watch it now. I think it probably was hokey then. But it was a lot of fun, and boy, that J.D. Roth is talented. He was the host of the show. And one of the shows, he always had cue cards, and one of the shows, they completely took away the teleprompter from him, and he did the whole show without a teleprompter. They were going to stop tape and start over again, but he just went with it. He is a true professional and really quite brilliant. And JD's done a lot of things, but that was pretty cool.
Well, yeah, then they got rid of him and brought in
Mario.
Yeah, AC Slater. Man, what's
right.
What's the deal with that?
Right, they got rid of me too.
Yeah.
And it wasn't good anymore. Yeah, I don't know why they did that, but it was fun. It was fun. Me and my curly wig, and that's pretty funny.
Well, we know you've been doing some more voice work on the new Turtles series, as you mentioned, kind of Mrs. O'Neill, so you're still keeping it in the same bloodline, I guess. Has that been weird to be back in that Turtles universe, like you mentioned, meeting the newer fans?
It is not weird at all. It is a joy. Andrea Romano is one of the best directors I have ever worked with. She is so giving and so supportive and so talented. The Nickelodeon studio is brilliant. From the minute you walk in, and everyone there is just loving and supportive and joyful and having fun, and I think very appreciative of the fact that Turtles is still going on. Their animation is incredible. I was so impressed with what they're doing. I mean, I was honored and thrilled to be asked back, and it was a joy to be in that studio, that's for sure. And I've had a chance to meet Sean Astin and Sean Green, and of course my very dear friend Rob Paulson is just the best. And again, very sweet and supportive and loving, and no big egos, just a family. It's just lovely.
Yeah, it's interesting to think. I mean, obviously the character came from the comic books, but as you mentioned, you guys being in the recording booth kind of gave life to April O'Neil, and now all these movies and everything afterwards, people are portraying that character and probably, taking cues from some of the groundwork that you laid. So
I hope so. I was appreciative of Megan Fox not being too sexy. There's some interesting artwork out there on the internet. And I'm really happy that Michael Bay did not take April in that direction.
Sure.
I have a lot of women who come up to me at Comic-Cons who tell me that April O'Neil got them through some very hard times, gave them a role model that they could be strong, they could be independent, they could rise above whatever their difficult situations are. So many times we hear from fans that the Turtles really got them through difficult times. They were kids that were bullied and teased, and maybe their parents were going through divorces or medical problems. it is one of the most rewarding experiences meeting the fans and then telling us how the Turtles in April really, really helped save them at that time in their lives. I don't think the Smurfs ever did that for anyone.
Yeah, you're probably right there.
I don't. And I was on a lot of different animation, they were sweet, but they did not get through kids through hard times. And something about the Ninja Turtles and something about April and her strength and her, tenacity, it touched children in a way I don't know any other show has done in history. So I'm so proud to be part of that. I'm so thrilled that people are still loving what we did and reminiscing and reliving it through the release of the new, the DVDs. And it's just an honor. And we all just fell into it, let me tell you. It wasn't of our own design. It was luck, and it was fortuitous, and we all feel very honored and fortunate and thankful.
Yeah, most definitely the show is a big part of our lives, and it's been really great having you on today, Renae.
Oh, well, it's really my pleasure, and thank you for continuing our legacy and for being fans, and I hope someday to meet you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
You take care.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.